This video is going to be about the Danganronpa fandom and its issues. I have been a Dangantuber for many years, since back in 2017 when I first discovered it. In my time, I've gotten to know many individuals and friends and creative people, some of whom I still chat with even now. The Danganronpa series is a franchise that gave me so much meaning and purpose as a content creator. Even now, many years after its apparent conclusion and finale, I still take great delight in casually browsing the subreddit and revisiting parts of the game. There's no doubt that the fandom, even now, is full of talented creators, writers, and artists who use their talents to open up new avenues in these old stories and make people consider aspects of the games in ways that simply would not be possible otherwise. But the experience has not been equally positive for all. This is going to be my first ever discussion video. A couple of days ago, I made 2 polls, both on my community tab and on the Danganronpa subreddit. And both polls, by a clear margin, gave the same answer. Whether you think the results are representative of the entire community as a whole, it seems that there is one thing that cannot be denied. The Danganronpa fandom, like many others, has its share of problems. Now, in my personal experience, I've seen a lot more instances of people complaining about so-called toxic behavior than I've seen actual examples of it. But since there is such a widespread association of the fandom with toxicity, we need to understand why so many people think that the fandom is unbearable. The complaints I've read about range from people being hostile and hypercritical towards those who express an opinion that they disagree with, to people simply posting old memes that are stale and unoriginal, to those simply not being cautious enough about spoilers. But by far, the most common complaint I've encountered that gives the Danganronpa fandom its bad reputation is to do with ships.
My boy, this ship's what all true warriors strive for.
For those of us who get easily attached to characters and can't bear to watch them die, especially those of us who are somewhat lacking in our love lives and starved of romance, romantic pairings are some of the most gratifying and fun aspects of any work of fiction. What's especially fun about ships is they don't need to be canon, necessarily, in order to work. There's just something really sweet and beautiful about giving 2 doomed characters romantic feelings for one another that may never even be actualized, especially in the unforgiving context of a killing game, whereas in reality either could be snuffed out quickly at a moment's notice. Now, I will admit that, in terms of shipping preferences, my tastes are pretty conventional, but I am very open-minded. I have seen so much beautiful and well-drawn art, read so many well-crafted fanfictions which were so good and enjoyable, to the point where I'm happy to accept them as real. Essentially, my personal rule in terms of shipping is, if you can argue for it effectively, or create beautiful art that shows how strongly you believe in it, then I'm sold. Take this for instance. I never would have imagined Celeste and Chihiro being together. Throughout the game, the 2 hardly interact with one another, and Celeste is unaware of Chihiro's real secret anyway. The 2 are just so unlike each other, and their personalities simply don't seem like they would work. But after seeing some beautiful, wholesome artwork on Twitter by this particular artist, well, what can I say? It works. I ship it. As long as it's not blatantly illegal or too ridiculous to even contemplate, I say go for it. In fact, you know what? I don't even think there is such a thing as a toxic ship. All ships are valid.
You love Monica, right? You can't live without Monica, right?
Okay, maybe I spoke too soon there. So, some ships are toxic. Alright, but anyway, people are different, their tastes are different, and their psychological needs, reflected in what they like to see in a romantic pairing, will inevitably differ. And most of the time, especially on the subreddit, people are usually kind and respectful enough to understand that. Not everyone thinks the same way as you do. Some people are straight, some are not. And some don't exactly like wholesome stuff either. Some like to look elsewhere and invest themselves in other ships, which requires a bit of artistic interpretation on their part. And that's all well and good, honestly. There's not really a right or wrong answer in terms of shipping, exactly. But the key thing is, as long as you can understand that not everyone shares your opinion, and some will criticize you for having yours, you're not going to encounter any problems. However, it seems that in the fandom there's quite a large, sizable number of people who cannot manage that. And these people usually tend to be children. So, kids, where do we begin? Here's an interesting fact that some of you may not have known. Most kids are not very bright. Yes, I'm aware you're all very, very shocked upon hearing this earth-shattering revelation, but try to contain your disbelief for just a few seconds, and I'll explain why. Children have a limited capacity for understanding other people's points of view. They lack emotional maturity and empathy. As anyone who remembers the school playground will tell you, they can get into arguments over trivial and random things quite easily. And then they can forgive and forget the next day just as easily. And they don't always have the self-awareness and maturity that adults have that would save them from getting into trouble. And I would know. I was like that once. When I was 14 years old, I absolutely loved, I had an obsession with Coldplay. I loved their music so much. Mentally, I could not comprehend why anyone in their right mind would not love such beautiful music. I listened to their albums X and Y and Viva La Vida or Death and All His Friends all the time in my mum's car when she was driving me to school, and I sang their songs many times when I was in school without being asked. You can only imagine just how annoying that must have been for the other students sat next to me back then. Anyway, it took me a couple of years to realize and understand that there are in fact some people who don't like Coldplay and who have different music tastes. And I began to learn over the years that Coldplay were not the only good band who existed. There were plenty of other music groups as well. And in fact, my music tastes changed over time. I don't even like them anymore. Certainly not their new stuff, anyway. The point I'm making is that kids can be fanatically obsessed with things that they're interested in and be defensive and hostile when their views are challenged. According to this poll, the majority of active participants of the fandom are 24 years or younger. Most people in the fandom are quite aware of the fact that there are a large number of young children here, some of whom are younger than the game's recommended age rating. I was surprised myself to learn just how young most viewers of my channel were. Speaking as somebody who is nearly 30 years old, I can tell you I've honestly lost track of the number of times I've visited other Discord servers only to find out that I'm the oldest one there. I'm acutely aware of the fact that I, a millennial, am in a minority. Add to that the fact that a lot of the fandom takes place online, a place where people never interact face-to-face, but mainly through the use of text and avatars. This makes it easy for them to forget that they're engaging with real people and not just a computer screen. This further reduces people's capacity for empathy. Add all these ingredients together, and you have the perfect recipe for cancer. These are the main reasons why there's so many examples of people witnessing toxic behavior in the fandom, and it's almost always shipping related. And curiously, one thing that I've noticed is that whenever there are arguments, it's always about these three: Komahina, Sayoma, and Band-Aid. This is borne out by the fact that there are so many widely circulated memes that can be found alleging people who ship these particular characters to show inordinate aggression and vitriol towards others who do not share their views.
Why is it when something happens, it is always you three?
As I said earlier, I don't necessarily have a problem with any of these ships per se. I'm happy to accept that there is contextual analysis that can lead some to believe that either one could be plausible. But like I also said, it doesn't give you the right to bully other people because of it. Most of the toxic nature of the fandom we hear about doesn't happen on Reddit, and there's a couple of reasons for that. First of all, the majority of people using Reddit are adults, millennials, people in their late 20s and 30s. And second, the mods are quick to take action against any behavior or posts that violates the rules. So most of the toxic behavior doesn't happen on Reddit. Instead, it tends to happen either on Discord or TikTok. And now, I'm going to take this moment to talk about TikTok just for a bit.
Hit or miss, I guess they never miss, huh?
Misogyny in Danganronpa Part 2 Fan Edition. Let's take a look at the 5 female DG characters who have the most hashtag uses on TikTok. You're not misogynist for liking these characters, but the fandom is for paying most attention to the women who fit these stereotypes.
I am not a big fan of TikTok. I've just never liked it. TikTok is basically the unholy union of the nihilistic attention-seeking ADHD personified that is Vine with the fanatical witch-hunting and social justice of Twitter. It has been known for some time that TikTok has had a negative effect on the mental health of young people. But the worst thing about TikTok is its complete lack of accountability. All kinds of rotten, antisocial behavior is allowed to thrive here, under the radar of the authorities. Personally, I'm glad that my videos have found my way onto there, and that many people have found them funny, and I will concede that there are some really good cosplayers on the platform, but everything about the platform seems like it's designed to amplify and attract outrage and controversy. In general, I find the whole environment a cancer dome. Politics.
Not a hit. Addressing problematic shit in Danganronpa, Part 1. In this part, we're going to be talking about the way how Chihiro's story is actually incredibly transphobic, even though Chihiro's not even trans.
So, as you all know, this is Hiro's character design. Locks are significant to black culture. So when non-black people cosplay Yasuhiro, they are contributing to cultural erasure or cultural appropriation.
Obnoxious music. Semi-literate walls of text.
Apologize. Come on, apologize. Apologize.
People with serious issues.
So since I've been talking a little bit more about my pronouns.
Hi guys, it's me, Alvin, from Alvin and the Chipmunks. All the single ladies. And I found out Theodore is gay. Pretty.
TikTok is proof that the coronavirus was only the second worst thing that the Chinese government ever inflicted upon our civilization. And given that TikTok is mainly inhabited by Generation Z, it's unsurprising that you find all the problems I mentioned earlier here. Combine its majority young user base with the lack of accountability and structural lack of responsibility on behalf of the app's owners, and what you get? Cringe and cancer.
Sooner than later, I realized I'd been watching TikTok for hours. But as I kept watching, I would see posts talking about the toxic traits of the fandom. One obvious thing is Kokichi. But listen, this one goes both ways from what I've seen. Some Kokichi-kins are awful, insulting others, and getting into heated arguments about ships. But I've also seen videos where people say, if you like this character, get off my page. Which, I'm just going to get off your page, no big deal for me really. But you have to see the hypocrisy. Taste is subjective. going to like different characters than me, and that's perfectly okay. There was really no reason to insult each other, alright?
Now, people can be quite immature when it comes to ships. That's one thing, of course, but that's not even the worst of it. The Danganronpa fandom wouldn't be anywhere near as toxic in the eyes of many if it weren't for the fact that some fans go way above and beyond simple criticism, name-calling, and death threats. Some go one step further. Doxing is not okay. In some cases, doxing can legitimately put a person's life in danger. Doxing is a cruel and unjust form of punishment that I would not wish upon my worst enemy. It inflicts severe psychological terror and duress upon the victim, and no matter what the stated reason, there is no justification for it. But surely you would think, of all the reasons why someone would want to publish sensitive, private information of another individual to humiliate and endanger them, surely no one would be so petty as to dox someone purely because they ship two characters which you don't, would they? Well, apparently it seems that there are some nutters out there who would indeed do exactly that. And the reasons for why these doxings have occurred are almost as baffling as the very notion of doxing itself. There are 3 well-known doxing incidents within the Danganronpa fandom that I was able to find out about with the help of a Google search. These 2, as you can see, happened on Discord about 2 years ago. It beggars belief. It's one matter to hate someone for holding an opinion that you don't like, but to go out of your own way to terrorize them by revealing their address, their real name, and God knows what else, and to coordinate a baying mob to harass and intimidate someone, this kind of behavior takes toxic to a whole new level. In another case I've read about, there was one person on TikTok who became the target of a doxing campaign, and why? Because they weren't cautious enough about revealing spoilers. The inhumanity! If you're new to a certain fandom, the responsibility surely lies with you to be careful and not to engage with the fandom until you're up to speed. That's what I did. I never got spoiled because I acted responsibly. But then I suppose you can't expect such forward-thinking behavior from anyone who would choose to dox someone for something as petty as that in the first place. What's especially concerning about the doxing phenomenon is that I'm not a programmer myself, so I don't know the science behind how it works exactly, but I would say it takes a significant degree of technical skill to pull off, and knowledge that wouldn't normally be accessible to young children. In other words, this is a crime committed by adults, which makes it even more despicable. So it seems like there are adults in the Danganronpa fandom who are even worse than the children in it.
Yeah, that's right. You adults are demons.
I can only begin to imagine the list of psychological and mental health issues that would belong to any such person who would willingly go to such lengths to target other people, most of whom are children, for something as anodyne as not believing that 2 fictional characters should be together. The last thing I want to talk about here is drama and controversy. As many of you may know, there are many highly influential YouTubers and content creators, some of whom have a very large following. They make videos ranging from discussions, video essays, shitposts, and are known for giving a range of opinions on the fandom. Some of these people are the unofficial voice of the fandom. Their videos speak for a lot of people, and they're very dedicated to what they do. Even several years later, it's largely thanks to them that the fandom is still alive. They have the wit and creativity, and the gift of the gab, to keep the series fresh with their opinions. And whenever there are new developments or news updates relating to the series, and what new games or action figures are being released, these people are usually the first ones to talk about it and bring it to everyone's attention. It goes without saying that the Dangantuber community is highly influential, some having over 100,000 subscribers, giving them a lot of reach on the internet. Add to that the fact that most people in the fandom are underage and easily susceptible to being brainwashed or tricked, drama and scandals are surely inevitable. There's a handful of popular DanganTubers who, in recent years, have been accused of all kinds of irresponsible conduct. I'm not going to say who these people are, but I think some of you will probably have a good idea of who I'm talking about. Some are alleged to have sent pornographic material to minors, while others have been accused of harassment and getting into heated arguments with people, acting in a really childish and immature manner. And I feel like, as an adult myself, I should make this clear. Most of the people at the center of these scandals are adults, and the victims are always children. If you're an adult with an audience full of young children, you have a responsibility to help them and not take advantage of them. We already know that children aren't as thick-skinned and mature as us, which is why we have to set a good example. We should be forgiving when they do silly things to us, but we should not drop to their example. If you think it's okay to make sexual comments to someone who you know is a minor, to use emotional blackmail and take advantage of them, something is wrong with you. You are a danger to young children. And though the people like this are few in number, given the disproportionate outrage they generate in comparison to how many influencers there are that don't engage in this kind of reckless and irresponsible behavior, it's little wonder why the Danganronpa fandom's name stinks. But on the flip side of this, there's another thing I've witnessed which is, in my opinion, equally as damaging, and that's call-out culture.
So I'm making a call-out post on my twitter.com.
I have never liked cancel culture, or call-out culture. Both of them are inherently sociopathic. You have to be some kind of sadist to derive satisfaction from publicly shaming an individual, especially on flimsy evidence for alleged behavior. There's absolutely no punishment or repercussions in this day and age for those who accuse people falsely on Twitter. There's no check or accountability. It's out of control, and it's downright toxic. Whether we're aware of this or not, we as people love to hear about drama, especially involving those with a large following, and for reasons ranging from envy to political views to a simple misunderstanding of the facts, we'll think nothing of publishing documents or publicly outing someone as a pedophile or groomer. Of course, taking advantage of underage children is unacceptable, there's absolutely no doubt about that. But before you accuse someone publicly of this, you need to stop and think. What if there are other explanations here? Is this an observed, repeated pattern of behavior that many have complained about over time? Or is this just a one-off, isolated incident that's been completely blown out of proportion? Is there another explanation for this? And supposing this individual were actually innocent, what would happen to their reputation? Would their lives or safety or mental well-being be at risk? Do I have any actual hard evidence? Or am I just bored and looking for a chance to stir the pot? Am I LARPing as Chris Hansen from Dateline NBC's How to Catch a Predator? I feel like, given the time I've spent on Twitter, I've seen far more accusations and call-outs of people alleged to be groomers than I've seen actual examples of it. I have known two people who, some time ago, through no fault of their own, found themselves becoming the victims of false accusations and a public exposition in which they were accused of things that they were not actually guilty of. Things like grooming of minors, transphobia, or homophobia. There is a right way and a wrong way to go about confronting an individual who is suspected of shady or criminal behavior. There is absolutely no need to ruin someone's livelihood unnecessarily, unless your conscience is clear and you believe that what you're saying is the truth. It just seems like nobody ever remembers the old saying, "Let he who is without sin cast the first stone." Because the one thing I can say about most people who take part in spreading these accusations, it's that it's pretty clear none of these people themselves have been publicly accused in the first place. Remember that the accusation can be just as damaging as the offense itself. And with a widespread issue like this, It's not hard to understand why the fandom has the bad reputation that it does. So, what have we learned from this video? Well, we learned that, first of all, kids have a tendency to ruin everything. Some adults have serious issues and are just magnets for trouble and drama. The internet can be a place where reason and common sense go to die. There's no reason to dox someone, period, let alone because they ship characters that you do not. It's never okay to take advantage of children, but it's also never okay to accuse someone publicly without hard enough evidence, and even then, you should be careful with how you go about doing it. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you like this, please subscribe to my channel and maybe consider donating so I can help make more of these.